Frank Mallory, 85, a retired U.S. Marine First Sergeant, quietly volunteers at a bar he once owned in Clinton Springs, Missouri. One Saturday, a gang of bikers enters a tavern. When Frank wipes a spilled drink near them, the leader violently assaults him, punching, kicking, and slamming him to the floor. No one intervenes. Bleeding and barely conscious, Frank manages to crawl away and call his son, Colonel Ryan Mallory, a Special Forces commander. While rain pours and betrayal deepens, Frank is left outside in the alley, bruised and abandoned, until 30 minutes later, military engines roar down the street. His son isn't just coming, he's bringing justice. The punch came out of nowhere. Frank Mallory, 85, retired U.S. Marine First Sergeant, didn't flinch, but his jaw cracked under the impact. The Red Oak Tavern erupted into chaos as a gang of leather-clad bikers pushed through tables. They weren't locals. Their vests screamed Iron Deaths and Kill Loyalty in cracked red thread. Clinton Springs wasn't ready for this. Frank had only been cleaning, a volunteer, not staff. A lifetime of service and discipline didn't let him sit idle. But when he wiped the spilled beer near their corner table, the biggest one stood up and growled, "Didn't you hear, Grandpa? Your time's up." Then came the blow. Then another. The table shattered behind Frank as he was slammed back first through it. A boot found his ribs. Another crushed his wrist. He hit the floor, coughing blood. The bartender turned his back. The manager, Jason, a man Frank had once trained as a dishwasher, muttered, "Please, don't make this worse," and walked away. A phone appeared, trying to record. A biker crushed it with a boot. Frank, wheezing, rolled onto his stomach, crawled to the wall, his vision blurred, ears ringing. Nobody moved to help. He reached into his coat, fingers fumbling, and pulled out a battered flip phone. His thumb punched a number without looking. "Ryan, they got me," he croaked. "Red Oak Tavern." Then the phone slipped from his hand, and the floor went black. Rain hammered the alley behind the Red Oak Tavern. Jason, the manager, dragged Frank Mallory's limp body through the rear door like a sack of waste. Frank's legs scraped the concrete, blood smearing behind them. "You're a liability," Jason hissed, shoving the old Marine against a dumpster. "You think your medals matter here? I've got a business to run. No more messes." The door slammed shut. Frank groaned, his sides screaming, his coat soaked through. Rats skittered nearby, bowled in the storm. His left arm wouldn't move, broken. He blinked hard, trying to stay conscious. Lightning lit the alley. In that flicker, Frank pulled a small velvet box from his coat. It took him 3 tries to open it with one hand. Inside lay a bronze star, dulled but still proud. "I didn't fight for this country so it could forget me," he rasped, rain sliding down his face, mixing with blood. He passed out, 3 states away at Fort Sheridan, Illinois. Colonel Ryan Mallory's day was about readiness drills and tight logistics. The 212 Special Tactics Group never missed a beat. Then his secure tablet lit up, Gray Code, Elder down. He froze. His father had only used it once before. During the hurricane evacuation in '98, Ryan tapped the feed. A grainy signal replayed. Frank's call, barely audible. "Ryan, they got me. Red Oak Tavern." Ryan stood. "All units," he barked. "Prep a blackout convoy. We roll in 15. "Sir," a young major whispered. "This isn't a sanctioned op. We'll get flagged." Ryan's voice cut like a blade. "It's not an op. It's family." The tarmac exploded with movement. Tactical Humvees rolled from the depot. Men snapped into gear, without questions. The convoy roared to life as Ryan keyed his mic. All elements, call sign Patriot Shield. Eyes open. Small town bar. Threat level unknown. Elder extraction and evidence lockdown. Go loud if necessary. Back in Clinton Springs, the tavern buzzed. The bikers ordered whiskey like warlords. One of them found the old plaque behind the bar, Frank Mallory, owner 1967-2002, and scratched out the name with a knife. Another laughed, waving Frank's bloodstained cloth. Old man bled like a stuck pig. "Yo, I'm the sergeant now," one yelled, wearing Frank's Marine cap crooked on his head. Jason said nothing. He served drinks. He glanced at the alley door once, but didn't go outside. Outside, Frank stirred. His flip phone buzzed weakly on the concrete. Battery low. Screen cracked. But still alive. The storm above shifted. In the far distance, tires ripped through waterlogged roads. Lights flickered behind the trees. Ryan was coming. And this time, he wasn't asking for permission. Inside the Red Oak Tavern, the air reeked of spilled beer and burned meat. The laughter was cruel now, stretched in over the echo of cruelty. The biggest biker, the one who started it, stood behind the bar, tipping back whiskey from a bottle he hadn't paid for. Frank Mallory's cap sat on his head, backward, greasy from sweat. "Raise your glasses, boys," he bellowed. "To the good O.L. First Sergeant. May learn to crawl better next time." Another thug lifted Frank's cane like a trophy. Too bad he forgot how to stand. The gang burst out laughing. One slammed his beer down and pointed at the scratch plaque above the bar. "Hey, check it. Frank Mallory, founder." Not anymore. He pulled out a knife and dragged the tip across the brass, carving crude lines through Frank's name. "Let's fix that. Maybe property of the Iron Deaths instead." Jason, the manager, watched from the other end of the bar, glass in hand, face pale. He wasn't laughing, but he wasn't stopping them either. He just looked down and muttered to himself, "It's just one guy. Old guy. Not worth the fight." Outside, the alley grew darker. The rain had stopped, but the cold remained. Frank lay half-conscious behind the tavern, back propped against the wall, lips bluish. His flip phone, miraculously still powered, buzzed once before dying. Battery gone. It fell from his limp fingers and clattered on the wet concrete. Then came the sound. Low, steady, building fast. The kind of sound you don't just hear, you feel in your chest. 3 blacked-out Humvees and a tactical support vehicle thundered into the gravel lot like something out of a war film. No sirens, no announcements, just headlights punching through the mist and tires chewing into gravel. Engines cut. Doors flew open. 8 Special Forces operators stepped out in formation, 4 per side, moving with trained precision. Gear was sleek, uniforms tight, weapons holstered, but presence unmistakable. Then came Ryan Mallory. "Colonel, son." He stepped out last, his boots crunching onto the gravel. He wore no helmet, no body armor, just a tactical vest, and eyes that had seen the worst and learned not to flinch. He scanned the scene once. His eyes found the figure behind the dumpster. "Frank," he barked. A soldier ran ahead, dropped to his knees beside the fallen Marine. 2 more appeared with a stretcher, unfolding at mid-stride. "He's alive," one confirmed. "Pulse weak but stable. Likely a collapsed lung. Broken wrist. Deep bruising." Ryan crouched beside his father. Frank's eyes fluttered open. "Semper Fi," he whispered. Ryan gripped his shoulder. "Semper Fi, First Sergeant. We're here." Frank's fingers twitched toward the cap that wasn't there. Ryan stood slowly and turned toward the tavern. Inside, the ringleader was in the middle of an impression. He was on all fours, wheezing loudly, dragging himself across the floor. "I'm Frank. Help me. I've fallen, and I can't get up," he mocked, and the others roared with laughter. Then the tavern door burst open with a steel crack. The music stopped. All heads turned. Ryan entered without a word. Behind him, 2 soldiers deployed a short-throw projector onto the back wall. One tapped the tablet. Within seconds, footage began to play. Frank's beating. Angle 1, overhead. Angle 2, from behind the bar. Frank wiping the table. The first punch. The table shattering. The kicks. The blood. The silence. Every second played out in painful clarity. The gang's smiles died. "You didn't just hit an old man," Ryan said, stepping forward. "You assaulted a decorated Marine, a man who earned his place in this town, and this country long, before you figured out how to ride a motorcycle." The leader muttered, "We didn't know who he was." "You don't need to know someone's rank to recognize dignity," Ryan said. "You strike the weak, you reveal the coward." The room didn't blink. "Cuff him," Ryan ordered. 2 operators stepped forward. The biker didn't move. One twist, one click, and his hands were locked behind his back. He whimpered as his knees hit the floor. The others didn't resist. Some dropped their drinks and raised their hands. Ryan's eyes scanned the rest of the room. Anyone else want to explain why they stood by? No one answered. You watched a man bleed in front of you, and you said nothing. You walked past a Marine in an alley, and you kept your hands in your pockets. But not anymore. He turned to Jason. You especially. He gave you your start. Fed you when you were broke. Took you in like a son, and you left him in the dirt. Jason's knees buckled. I was scared. Frank Mallory wasn't. That's the difference. Outside, townsfolk were gathering, drawn by the lights, the vehicles, the feeling. Something was happening. A reckoning. Ryan stepped into the open air as Frank was lifted gently onto a stretcher. The old man opened his eyes again, just long enough to see the flag waving from the tactical vehicle. The town had turned its back once. Not anymore. Colonel Ryan Mallory stood in the center of the Red Oak Tavern like a loaded weapon. The room had shrunk. Laughter was gone. The mocking biker with Frank's USMC cap now stood trembling. His swagger crushed beneath Ryan's glare. No one dared speak. A silence that felt like judgment hung thick in the air. You didn't just hit an old man, Ryan said evenly, eyes fixed on a leader. You hit a man who dragged his best friend's broken body through gunfire in Fallujah, who wired shrapnel from his thigh with his own fingers so his men wouldn't have to carry him, who built this place with the same hands you beat into the floor. The biker swallowed hard. We didn't know. Ryan raised a hand, cut him off. Knowing who someone is doesn't excuse cruelty. You don't beat someone because you didn't know better. You don't walk over a man because it's convenient. He nodded once. Two soldiers grabbed the biker, twisting his arms behind his back. He didn't resist. Not anymore. He didn't even protest as cuffs clicked closed. Jason, the manager, tried to slip toward the back door. He didn't get far. An operator blocked his path with one step. You left a man to die in your alley, Ryan said, turning to him. A man who gave you your first job, who vouched for you when no one else would. You were 19. He paid your rent one winter. You think we didn't know that? Jason's face broke. I didn't mean to. You meant to survive, Ryan cut in. That's not the same as doing what's right. Another soldier collected Jason's statement, noting timestamps. This wasn't vigilante justice. This was procedure, airtight and efficient. Ryan turned to the patrons. Anyone else want to explain why they watched and did nothing? No one spoke. No one moved. A woman near the back began to cry silently. One man, a balding regular with a beer gut and a denim vest, stood shakily. I didn't know what to do, he said. They said not to interfere. Ryan's voice softened for the first time. You always know what to do. You just have to choose to do it. That's what makes a man. He tapped the projector again. A second clip played. Frank, dragging himself into the corner, pulling out his flip phone, making the call, then collapsing. Gray code, Ryan said quietly. It's a signal used by Marines when everything else has failed, when they have no command left, no structure, just one person, someone who will answer no matter what. He faced the room. And I did. A new sound filled the space, the approaching whine of sirens. The local police had arrived. Officers entered cautiously, but stopped short when they saw the soldiers already holding evidence, statements, and two suspects in cuffs. The sheriff, an older man who'd known Frank for decades, looked stunned. Colonel Mallory, he said, I was just told something happened here. Ryan nodded. It's already handled, Sheriff. Evidence compiled. Victims stabilized. Witnesses ready. The sheriff looked around, at the crowd, at the projectors, at the military presence, and gave a slow nod. Then I reckon all that's left is to do the paperwork. He gestured to his deputies. The bikers were transferred to local custody. Jason was escorted to back, no longer managing anything but his own regrets. Outside, the mist had lifted. The Humvees idled silently, their flags unmoved by breeze or doubt. Ryan walked outside. Frank lay on the stretcher, oxygen mask fitted, ribs bandaged. His eyes were open, barely. Ryan stood beside him, then saluted. Frank's fingers trembled upward, but the motion was unmistakable. The crowd gathered around them. Some clapped. Some stood silently, hats in hand. No one filmed. No one spoke. The moment didn't ask for noise. One by one, the soldiers in formation turned and saluted, a line of straight backs and steady hands, offering more than tribute, offering witness. Inside the tavern, the television still played the footage on loop, Frank being beaten and Frank standing again. One soldier stepped back inside. She approached the bar where the scratched plaque hung. Without ceremony, she replaced it with a new one, polished brass, freshly engraved. Frank Mallory, founder, Marine, defender the Red Oak. She tapped it once, then turned and walked out. By nightfall, the tavern was closed. Yellow tape sealed the alley. But above the door, someone had hung a small American flag. No one knew who. Across town, lights turned off slower than usual. People were quiet. People were thinking. And in a hospital room 15 miles away, Frank Mallory slept with a Marine flag folded at his bedside. 1 week later, the Red Oak Tavern reopened under a new name, Mallory Hall. A banner hung from the rafters, built by a warrior, defended by his bloodline. Frank Mallory returned, slowly on a cane, but under his own power. The first time he stepped through those doors again, the entire room stood, not just out of habit, out of reverence. A new plaque greeted every patron. Courage is quiet until it's needed. Frank didn't talk much about what happened. He didn't need to. The town had already started changing around him. Veterans were invited to speak at schools. Young men shook older hands with newfound respect. Retired soldiers who once sat in corners now shared coffee at the center booths. Jason was gone. The biker gang disbanded. Their leader? Facing multiple charges. His attorney couldn't scrub away the video. Colonel Ryan returned to Fort Sheridan. But before leaving, he left behind something else, a scholarship fund in Frank's name for local veterans' children. One Saturday, as Frank cleaned tables, a boy no older than 10 approached with a notebook and wide eyes. "Sir," he asked, "is it true you saved people in a war?" Frank smiled gently. "No, son, I just stood beside those who did." Across the diner, the flag above the bar stirred in the breeze from the ceiling fan. And as the boys saluted without being told, the future of Clinton Springs straightened its spine, one kind act at a time.